Welcome back to this episode of It's Case. On this episode, we're going to give you the details and rules of the NBA's restart plan in Orlando bubble, as well as giving you everything you need to know about each of the NBA's 22 teams that are traveling to Walt Disney World. To start off, there's going to be games at 3 different areas, and there will be no outside fans. But there may be people in the stands, such as a limited number of players, limited number of media, as well as team executives and others.
Players will spread out over 2 rows of seating. Players will dress at their hotels and required to return to their rooms to shower. During the games, players are being told not to spit or clear their noses, wipe the ball with their jerseys, lick their hands, or touch their mouths unnecessarily.
There is also a new twist with the final playoff spot in each conference. As you know, there were more than 16 teams invited back to the Walt Disney World bubble, and there's going to be 8 extra regular season games. After those 8 regular season games, the NBA will use a play-in round to determine if the 9th seed is within 4 games of the 8th seed. At that point, there's going to be a play-in round to determine who is going to be the 8th seed for each conference. So if the 8th seed would need to win 1 game against the 9th seed to advance to the playoffs, whereas the 9th seed will have to win 2 games in a row to advance.
So for example, the Pelicans are the 9th seed and the Grizzlies are the 8th seed, and the Pelicans are 4 games behind the Grizzlies. The Pelicans will get an opportunity to get in. The Pelicans will play the Grizzlies. If the Pelicans win, they have to beat them again. If the Grizzlies win once, that's it.
Flex on you haters, hi haters. This is my world, so it's all in my favor.
Washington Wizards. Their record is 24-40, currently the 9th seed in the East. Remaining schedule: Phoenix Suns, Brooklyn Nets, Indiana Pacers, Philadelphia 76ers, New Orleans Pelicans, Oklahoma City Thunder, Milwaukee Bucks, Boston Celtics. Key roster changes: they lost Davis Bertans, Gary Payton II, and Thomas Bryant have the coronavirus. Bradley Beal is sitting out to rehab his shoulder. Wizards sign Jermaine Grant. Biggest X factor: Rui Hachimura. Major questions surrounding the Wizards. What's at stake for the Wizards next year? Is Bradley Beal going to stay? How will John Wall look after his Achilles injury? Will the Wizards sign Bertans to a max deal?
Phoenix Suns, currently 26-39, the 13th seed in the Western Conference. Remaining schedule: Washington Wizards, Dallas Mavericks, Los Angeles Clippers, Indiana Pacers, Miami Heat, Oklahoma City Thunder, Philadelphia 76ers, Dallas Mavericks. Key roster changes: they signed Cameron Payne, and Kelly Oubre is a maybe due to a knee injury. X Factor: Kelly Oubre Jr. Major questions surrounding the Suns: how will Devin Booker and DeAndre Ayton gel together? And will Devin Booker want to stay with the team in the future?
San Antonio Spurs. Their record is 27-36, currently the 12th seed in the West. Remaining schedule: Sacramento Kings, Memphis Grizzlies, Philadelphia 76ers, Denver Nuggets, Utah Jazz, New Orleans Pelicans, Houston Rockets, and the Utah Jazz. Key roster changes: LaMarcus Aldridge will not travel with the team due to a shoulder injury. Assistant head coach Tim Duncan also won't join the team in Orlando. Spurs also added Tyler Zeller to the roster. Biggest X factor: DeJounte Murray. Major questions surrounding the Spurs: will the Spurs streak of 22 consecutive years of playoffs continue this year?
Sacramento Kings, currently 28-36, 11th seed in the Western Conference. Remaining schedule: San Antonio Spurs, Orlando Magic, Dallas Mavericks, New Orleans Pelicans, Brooklyn Nets, Houston Rockets, New Orleans Pelicans, Los Angeles Lakers. Key roster changes: the Kings signed Corey Brewer, De'Aaron Fox is a maybe due to ankle injury, 4 players have tested positive for COVID-19, including Buddy Hield, Jabari Parker, Alex Len, and Harrison Barnes, and Rashawn Holmes has crossed Disney campus line while getting a food order and must quarantine before returning to play. Biggest X factor: Buddy Hield. Major questions surrounding the Kings: can this young team string together wins to slide into the playoffs, and do they have depth? They moved Buddy Hield to the bench, but beyond that, how will their bench perform?
New Orleans Pelicans. Their record is 28-36, currently the 10th seed in the West. Remaining schedule: Utah Jazz, Los Angeles Clippers, Memphis Grizzlies, Sacramento Kings, Washington Wizards, San Antonio Spurs, Sacramento Kings, and the Orlando Magic. Key roster changes: Darius Miller will not travel due to his Achilles injury. Zion Williamson leaves the bubble for a family matter, but plans to return on a later date. Biggest X Factor, Lonzo Ball. Major questions surrounding the Pelicans. Will the Pelicans be able to win enough games to take over the 8th seed? And is Zion in shape after a 4-month break?
Portland Trail Blazers, currently 29-37, the 9th seed in the Western Conference. Remaining schedule: Memphis Grizzlies, Boston Celtics, Houston Rockets, Denver Nuggets, Los Angeles Clippers, Philadelphia 76ers, Dallas Mavericks, Brooklyn Nets. Key roster changes: Jusuf Nurkic and Zach Collins are healthy, and Trevor Ariza is sitting out due to personal reasons. Biggest X factor: Jusuf Nurkic. Major questions surrounding the Trailblazers: will a healthy frontcourt get the team into the playoffs? And how will Dame and CJ perform as a backcourt?
Orlando Magic. Their record is 30-35, currently the 8th seed in the East. Remaining schedule: Brooklyn Nets, Sacramento Kings, Indiana Pacers, Toronto Raptors, Philadelphia 76ers, Boston Celtics, Brooklyn Nets, and the New Orleans Pelicans. Key roster changes: Jonathan Isaac and Al-Farouq Aminu are close to returning from injury. Biggest X Factor, Markelle Fultz. Major questions surrounding the Magic. Can the Magic young core grow and develop together? And is Jonathan Isaac healthy enough to return?
Brooklyn Nets, currently 30-34, the 7th seed in the Eastern Conference. Remaining schedule: Orlando Magic, Washington Wizards, Milwaukee Bucks, Boston Celtics, Sacramento Kings, Los Angeles Clippers, Orlando Magic, Portland Trailblazers. Key roster changes: the Nets have been devastated by losing 8 of their players from COVID-19, injury, and personal reasons. They only have 14 healthy players, which is the lowest in the league. They also signed Jamal Crawford. Biggest X factor: Rodion's Kurucs. Major questions surrounding the Nets: will these role players stay with the team in 2021? And who will be the future coach for KD and Kyrie?
Memphis Grizzlies. Their record is 32-33, currently the 8th seed in the West. Remaining schedule: Portland Trailblazers, San Antonio Spurs, New Orleans Pelicans, Utah Jazz, Oklahoma City Thunder, Toronto Raptors, Boston Celtics, and the Milwaukee Bucks. Justice Winslow has been ruled out. Jaren Jackson Jr. and Brandon Clark are planning to return from injury. Biggest X factor: Jaren Jackson Jr. Major questions surrounding the Grizzlies. Will the Grizzlies be able to secure the 8th seed? And will the young core of Ja Morant and Jaren Jackson Jr. be enough to lift them up?
Dallas Mavericks, currently 40-27, the 7th seed in the Western Conference. Remaining schedule: Houston Rockets, Phoenix Suns, Sacramento Kings, Los Angeles Clippers, Milwaukee Bucks, Utah Jazz, Portland Trailblazers, and the Phoenix Suns. Key roster changes: Willie Cauley-Stein has opted out of the NBA restart, and Dwight Powell, Courtney Lee, and Jalen Brunson are out due to injuries. The Mavs will also sign Trey Burke. Biggest X factor: Kristaps Porzingis. Major questions surrounding the Mavericks: how will the Mavs adjust to a thin front court? And are Luka and Kristaps healthy enough to lead the Mavericks?
Philadelphia 76ers. Their record is 39-26, currently the 6th seed in the East. Remaining schedule: Indiana Pacers, San Antonio Spurs, Washington Wizards, Orlando Magic, Portland Trailblazers, Phoenix Suns, Toronto Raptors, and the Houston Rockets. Key roster changes: Zaire Smith will not join the team because of a knee injury. Biggest X factor: Tobias Harris. Major questions surrounding the Sixers. How will the Sixers do playing in a neutral site without fans? How will the lineup look with Al Horford coming off the bench? And will Ben Simmons start shooting?
Indiana Pacers. Their record is 39-26, currently the 5th seed in the Eastern Conference. Remaining schedule: Philadelphia 76ers, Washington Wizards, Orlando Magic, Phoenix Suns, Los Angeles Lakers, Miami Heat, Houston Rockets, and the Miami Heat. Key roster changes: Victor Oladipo may return from his injury, Domantas Sabonis leaves the bubble indefinitely due to a significant foot injury, and Miles Turner is nursing a calf injury. Biggest X factor? Miles Turner. Major questions surrounding the Pacers: who will pick up the slack for Sabonis? And will Oladipo be healthy enough to help lead the Pacers?
Houston Rockets. Their record is 40-24, currently the 6th seed in the West. Remaining schedule: Dallas Mavericks, Milwaukee Bucks, Portland Trail Blazers, Los Angeles Lakers, Sacramento Kings, San Antonio Spurs, Indiana Pacers, and the Philadelphia 76ers. Key roster changes: Rockets sign Luke Balmute. Biggest X factor: Robert Covington. Major questions surrounding the Rockets: how will James Harden and Russell Westbrook look after recovering from COVID-19? And how will their small ball lineup fare in the playoffs?
Oklahoma City Thunder. Their record is 40-24, currently the 5th seed in the Western Conference. Remaining schedule: Utah Jazz, Denver Nuggets, Los Angeles Lakers, Memphis Grizzlies, Washington Wizards, Phoenix Suns, Miami Heat, and the Los Angeles Clippers. Key roster changes: Andre Roberson is healthy and will join the team in the bubble after not playing a game since 2018. Biggest X factor? Dennis Schroeder. Major questions surrounding the Thunder: will the Thunder make noise in the playoffs? And is Chris Paul going to stay with the Oklahoma City Thunder for the long-term future?
Miami Heat. Their record is 41-24, currently the 4th seed in the East. Remaining schedule: Denver Nuggets, Toronto Raptors, Boston Celtics, Milwaukee Bucks, Phoenix Suns, Indiana Pacers, Oklahoma City Thunder, Indiana Pacers. Key roster changes: Derrick Jones Jr., who tested positive for coronavirus, and Myers Leonard, who had an ankle injury, are both ready to return. Biggest X factor: Andre Iguodala. Major questions surrounding the Heat: will Jimmy Butler be able to lift the Heat to the next level? And how will the Heat look in a neutral site without their home crowd?
Utah Jazz. Their record is 41-23, currently the 4th seed in the Western Conference. Remaining schedule: New Orleans Pelicans, Oklahoma City Thunder, Los Angeles Lakers, Memphis Grizzlies, San Antonio Spurs, Denver Nuggets, Dallas Mavericks, and the San Antonio Spurs. Key roster changes: Bojan Bogdanovic is out of the postseason due to a wrist injury. Donovan Mitchell and Rudy Gobert have tested positive for COVID-19, and Rudy Gobert still has trouble smelling to this day. Biggest X factor? Mike Conley. Major questions surrounding the Jazz: will the Jazz have a legitimate shot at contending for the title? And how will the Jazz look without Bogdanovic?
Denver Nuggets. Their record is 43-22, currently the 3rd seed in the West. Remaining schedule: Miami Heat, Oklahoma City Thunder, San Antonio Spurs, Portland Trail Blazers, Utah Jazz, Los Angeles Lakers, Los Angeles Clippers, and the Toronto Raptors. Key roster changes: Bobo will make his debut in Orlando. Troy Daniels, who recently joined the Nuggets, will join them in Orlando. Nikola Jokic recovers from COVID-19. Biggest X factor: Michael Porter Jr. Major questions surrounding the Nuggets: what will a skinny Jokic look like? Will Jamal Murray be enough as a second star? How will the Nuggets look against the top tier teams?
Boston Celtics. Their record is 43-21, currently the 3rd seed in the Eastern Conference. Remaining schedule: Milwaukee Bucks, Portland Trail Blazers, Miami Heat, Brooklyn Nets, Toronto Raptors, Orlando Magic, Memphis Grizzlies, and the Washington Wizards. Key roster changes: Marcus Smart tested positive for the coronavirus, and Kemba Walker has left knee soreness that will keep him in a minutes restriction for the 8 seeding games. Biggest X factor: Gordon Hayward. Major questions surrounding the Celtics: will Jason Tatum lead the Celtics to the Eastern Conference Finals? How will the Celtics fare against the Sixers if they face them in the first round? And can they match up with the Bucks?
Los Angeles Clippers. Their record is 44-20, currently the 2nd seed in the West. Remaining schedule: Los Angeles Lakers, New Orleans Pelicans, Phoenix Suns, Dallas Mavericks, Portland Trail Blazers, Brooklyn Nets, Denver Nuggets, Oklahoma City Thunder. Key roster changes. The NBA is investigating Lou Williams and where he went when he left the bubble. Montrezl Harrell and Patrick Beverley have also left the bubble with plan to return. Landry Shamet has recovered from COVID-19 and is on his way to Orlando. The Clippers also signed Joakim Noah. Biggest X factor, Patrick Beverley. Major questions surrounding the Clippers. Will the Clippers starting five stay healthy? And will the time played together as a core be a factor for the starting five?
Toronto Raptors. Their record is 46-18, currently the second seed in the Eastern Conference. Remaining schedule: Los Angeles Lakers, Miami Heat, Orlando Magic, Boston Celtics, Memphis Grizzlies, Milwaukee Bucks, Philadelphia 76ers, and the Denver Nuggets. Key roster changes. The Raptors are fully healthy going into the Orlando bubble, but Marc Gasol has lost some weight in his training. Biggest X factor, Fred VanVleet. Major questions surrounding the Raptors. Can the Raptors defend their championship without Kawhi? How will skinny Gasol defend bigs like Joel Embiid? And is Pascal Siakam a superstar capable of leading a team to the finals?
Los Angeles Lakers. Their record is 49-14, currently the first seed in the West. Remaining schedule: Los Angeles Clippers, Toronto Raptors, Utah Jazz, Oklahoma City Thunder, Houston Rockets, Indiana Pacers, Denver Nuggets, Sacramento Kings. Key roster changes: Avery Bradley opts out to play in Orlando. Rajon Rondo fractures his thumb. Dion Waiter makes his debut in Orlando, and the Lakers sign J.R. Smith. Biggest X factor, Kyle Kuzma. Major questions surrounding the Lakers. How will the Lakers perform when LeBron is on the bench? How will the Lakers' point guard rotation look? How will the team overcome Avery Bradley's versatility?
Milwaukee Bucks. Their record is 53-12, currently the first seed in the Eastern Conference. Remaining schedule: Boston Celtics, Houston Rockets, Brooklyn Nets, Miami Heat, Dallas Mavericks, Toronto Raptors, Washington Wizards, and the Memphis Grizzlies. Key roster changes: Eric Bledsoe tested positive for the coronavirus, and Giannis is fully healthy and recovered from his left leg injury. Biggest X factor, Eric Bledsoe. Major questions surrounding the Bucks. Will the Bucks win the NBA championship? How will Giannis perform in the playoffs? Will we see MVP Giannis? Can Coach Budenholzer continue the Bucks' momentum in the bubble?